Okay, so I'm talking about Michael Bird on creation and Adam and Eve. In his systematic theology textbook, the section on humanity and the gospel, Michael Bird discusses the question, did God directly create Adam and Eve, the historical parents of the entire human race? So even though to many of us who grew up in a very traditional Protestant church setting, this question might seem weird and the answer obvious, it's actually very much debated amongst Christian theologians. So Bird lists three views or answers to the question. The first view is special creationism, which is probably the version you were taught in Sunday school, and it's the belief that God created the universe in 6 literal days with a literal Adam created on the 6th literal day, so essentially interpreting Genesis purely literally. And then the second view is progressive creationism, and that's the belief that God created new life forms over millions of years, and that the first two humans were Adam and Eve, literally the first two humans and the parents of the human race. So it does take the view of an older Earth, but it does retain the view that Adam and Eve were the first two humans, and they were literal historical figures. And the third view is theistic evolutionism, and that's the belief that God used evolution to create life, and that Adam and Eve are purely symbolic. So Bird says this question is difficult to answer because to answer it, you have to take into account cosmology, geology, biology, genetics, ancient Near Eastern creation stories, biblical theology, and hermeneutics. But he says that as far as he has studied the cosmology and geology, he's convinced that the Earth is old. And he also states that he's found nothing in Scripture to contradict that belief, and so nothing in Scripture that necessitates a belief in a young Earth. For this reason, he considers progressive creationism the most biblical and scientifically satisfying option. He also states in a footnote that he finds the idea of amino acids randomly evolving into astronauts a bit far-fetched. So this said, Bird states on no uncertain terms that he does believe in a literal Adam and Eve for several reasons. First, he says that there's more to consider than genetics when talking about the difference between humans and apes. So probably referring to the distinctive human intellect and mind were made in the image of God in that way. He also says that similarity hardly demands shared ancestry, as a lot of atheist evolutionist scientists would want you to believe. So second, he says that though there have been recent studies in genetics that seem to indicate that humans came from a population pool of 10,000 rather than the two people of the biblical account, Adam and Eve, the actual rates of change in genetic diversity are ambiguous, Michael Bird says. So basically the science behind these beliefs are not convincing enough for him, basically. The third, Bird begins to talk about hermeneutics and how Genesis 1 through 11 must be interpreted as a mixture of history and parable, changing from literal to figurative and back more than once. As he states, Genesis 1 is about establishing a theistic worldview, not refuting evolution or Darwinianism. Through this literary approach to reading Genesis, it is possible to consider Adam and Eve as not necessarily the parents of the entire human race, not literal figures. However, Bird explains that Genesis 1 through 3 in his word has the poignancy of being historically rooted. Though, of course, Adam and Eve stand for more than the parents of humanity, they are central to the story of the gospel as well. Which brings me to Bird's fourth point. He states that Paul clearly believed in a literal Adam as the first Adam to Christ's second Adam, and he cites Romans 5 and 1 Corinthians 15 and 45 to back that up. Essentially, if there's no original Adam, there's no original sin, and therefore no need for Jesus' sacrifice. So this being the basis of Christianity, it seems necessary to accept that Adam and Eve were real people. In Wayne Grudem's systematic theology and his section on creation, he does address some of the same issues that Michael Bird does. For one, Grudem concedes that there is debate amongst Christians as to what extent evolution took place after creation. He holds, I think as Michael Bird does, that the Bible is explicit enough to preclude any biblically based belief that humans are the result of a long evolutionary process. He, like Bird as well, cites Paul as reaffirming the historicity of the creation of Adam and Eve. Grudem does